Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley, and I've now travelled so far to the south through Shropshire that I am in Worcestershire, and this is the Church of St Bartholomew, Bayton. It was basically completely rebuilt in 1904-5 by John Aldred Scott, who, yes, was part of that family of architects. It's in the arts and crafts style. There's a few surviving bits and pieces from older buildings, especially, of course, in the fabric itself, but also a really lovely Norman font, which we'll see in a moment. It's located in a spectacular position just here, just south of the border with Shropshire, with magnificent views over the surrounding countryside, which hopefully we'll see when we go outside. But first of all, let's have a look around the inside. As usual, we start at the west end, which is somewhat further east than it used to be because of the installation of modern facilities at the west. This font that I mentioned, lovely Norman font here, obviously it's been moved around, even as the building has been moved around. You can just see that door there, again the doorway, there's Norman work there, so clearly the doorway's been preserved, that window to the and east of it, and some of the wood, some of the timbers of the roof are clearly medieval, but it's largely been rebuilt and is now basically its early 20th century arts and crafts church. Here is the War Memorial. At the top we have the Great War, 1914 to 18, and a good number of names. 12 names in all, just one for the Second World War. And we have this picture here of the noble knight. And it's this ideal that is in many ways betrayed, or it's felt to be betrayed by what happens after the war. And so this whole, well, how useless is the First World War, really it's an attitude that develops after the war because of the failure of things to go the way that people had hoped they would. It's often the case, sadly. Pulpit is not very old, although it includes some old panelling. And a good example, so again, the use of recycled panelling you've got there. Beside it, that's got to be an old lampstand, I expect. I mean, surely at this date it can't. I suppose it could be, actually. It could be the stand. It is indeed an old stand for the hourglass that you time yourself. Yes, it's older than I thought it was. And obviously that's to do with the time of the length of the sermon. And a good preacher would know how long to preach and when to stop. Organ in an organ chamber, very typical, of course. And there we are looking west. You can see that modern bit at the back, kitchen on one side, facilities on the other, and then beyond the tower, which contains the vestry. And through the vestry window, the wonderful view over the countryside, down the hill towards, I think it was Mamble at that point. John Carwood, M.A., vicar of this parish, 1874 to 94, died July the 8th, 1894, aged 72, loved and respected by all. Again, it's something that you didn't see before the coronation. King Charles III, he hasn't replaced a picture of his mother. There wasn't a picture of his mother here, but now got a picture of the king. Sedilia and Piscine, obviously very, very crisp. Carving early 19th century. John Aldred Scott, there's the east window, and you can see at the bottom there is Mamble, not Mamble Church, there is Bayton Church even. Mamble is the neighbouring village, just so I get slightly confused about it. Reredos is relatively plain, actually. Altar table, of course, and there's the organ. And it's a building that there is a distinction between nave and chancel. The arch, however, is wooden rather than stone, and again reflecting this arts and crafts aesthetic. And arts and crafts is a movement that arises in the 19th century, and it's to do with this concern over industrialization. You're getting a loss of the old craftsmanship. And so there's a drive, really, towards more craftsmanship. We want these things to be, we want to have individual men working away, and so something like this. It's an attempt to recapture the medieval ideals of craftsmanship in the face of industrialization and mass production. And that's why you've got things like this carved pulpit and the carved panelling, the fronts here. It's all about, this is about respecting what people can do and saying, okay, we can mass produce things. Do we want to have a mass produced world, or do we want to have people making beautiful things? That's the arts and crafts movement. Now, you may view it as shockingly naive or whatever, but that's how it works. It produces people like William Morris, who's one of the great arts and crafts workers. And there's a number of arts and crafts churches. Some are very, very creative, and some are much more, well, let's do something that looks and feels a bit more medieval. So this is an arts and crafts church. It's one of the simpler ones. They do tend in some senses to be quite simple, but at the same time some can be very big and they can be very experimental, oddly enough. And I say oddly enough because you would think, well, a movement that's about let's get back to the ideals of craftsmanship, how could you be experimental and daring? Well, they could be, and that's the amazing thing, they could be. So this is Bayton inside, and we'll see the outside. And again, what you're looking at is you're looking at stonemasons, you're looking at people trying to do things in a less industrialized way, in a way that perhaps is more fitting, I think, with medieval churches. Well, that's the inside. Let's have a look at the outside now. And so here we are outside of Bayton. Because of this arts and crafts work, it's sometimes difficult to see whether the medieval stops and the later begins. Not so much the tower. The tower is 18th century. It replaced a wooden structure. Now, wooden towers, there is one nearby at Mamble, which, God willing, will be the subject of a future video. But the thing with them, of course, is if they're struck by lightning, they burn down. They're something of a fire hazard, and so it's taken down and replaced with this stone one. But also this idea, well, certainly in the 18th century, well, a stone tower looks a bit posher than a wooden thing. However picturesque the wooden one may be. There's still quite a number of wooden towers in Worcestershire, but there used to be a lot more, and this was one of them. So let's have a look around the outside, shall we? As you can see, the East End is very obviously early 20th century, very obviously the Aldred Scott restoration here, and particularly that east wall. The tower, the weather vane is rather leaning, isn't it? I think that's going to need some work on it. There has been some bits falling off the tower recently, which is a bad thing. So you can see here, there's very irregular, well, not very regular, but this masonry here, there's a bit more regular than the tumbled rubble here, which is medieval, of course. You can just see there the outline of an older window that's been replaced by this one here, and then a nice window there. The porch, of course, is early 20th century, and within there is a Norman doorway, I believe. So let's have a look. There we go. Norman doorway, you can see that. Zigzag carving. Some is more weathered than others. It's to do with the kind of stone they used. And there's this play and tympanum. You can see again, it's quite a plain doorway. Some of that woodwork, some of that ironwork rather looks medieval. It's very good ironwork anyway, isn't it? There's the roll of honour, those who served. And we proceed around, if I can get this. There's a trick to it somewhere. There we are, get the door closed properly. And proceed around to the tower. You can see that 18th century Georgian base there, and then we've got a memorial here to chap died in India in 1950, and there's the view, and you can see it. This is the view you get out of the window of the vestry. It's a magnificent view over the valley below, and that's Worcestershire stretching out before you, I believe. Yes, that's Worcestershire. Worcestershire, and you just see there, pointy thing, I think that's the spire of another church. Probably not so visible in the image from the camera as it is to me because it's positioned polarised. And here again, more restoration. You see, there would have been a gallery. You've got a gallery window there. It's from the Georgian work, and of course then Victorians. The gallery's taken away, and then you've got this massive restoration that gives us the buildings we see today. There's the organ chamber, obviously, because one of the things that the Victorians are very big on is church music, and church music for the Victorians means an organ. It means getting rid of the old rustic gallery bands. There's a certain irony, therefore, that the modern ideas seem to be get rid of the organ and replace it with a music group. Because, okay, we got rid of the music group and replaced it with an organ, now we reverse the process. The more things change, the more they stay the same, as they say. There is the Lich Gate, which is a nice bit of arts and crafts work there. And you can see how the idea here, so there's relatively clean lines on that, and it's not trying to be 15th century, it's not trying to be 14th century, that's a good thing. So that is the church here at Bayton, St Bartholomew's, Bayton. And so here we have it, Bayton St Bartholomew is a lovely example of mostly arts and crafts, but hints and elements of older stages in the building, because particularly that tower, but also got Norman walls and that Norman doorway. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.